going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is
The president needs to face the music yet again in another lawsuit. Let's break that down. Hi, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and this is The Breakdown. Well, the president yet again is being sued for defamation. This now has to do with the Exonerated Five, what many may remember as the Central Park Five. Now, these were five young men by the names of Yusuf Salaam, Antron McCrae, Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, who were teens back in 1989, were hanging out in Central Park, and very sadly and tragically, a jogger was brutally sexually assaulted and beaten and left for dead. She did not die, but she was in horrible shape. Now, if you saw the Netflix special, and there was just a number of recent movies revisiting this horrible case, I remember it firsthand from growing up in New York and remembering the media coverage and everything around that. It was an incredibly divisive case because these were five young African-American boys. They were basically kept in the room, forced to confess. They did not have counsel. Their parents were not allowed to be in there with them, kept them for hours and hours, questioned them 10 different ways from sunrise. These were young boys who were absolutely terrified, so they confessed. They didn't know any better. So they ended up going to trial. They ended up being convicted. And that conviction was overturned in 2002 when it was determined that somebody else committed the crime. Like, not that they were not guilty. Literally, someone else committed the crime. The DNA was very clear that it was tied to this other defendant who was already in custody for another sexual assault. And he was the person who did it, not these boys. So all of this time, starting back in 1989 when this happened, all the way to today, the president has been saying that, these kids are animals and these kids did it and they're guilty, etc., even though it was clear that that was not true. So back when this case first came about, he took out a full-page ad in the papers calling for the death penalty. And again, this was super divisive because it was all about, these boys, of course, characterized them as animals, etc., and it became a huge flashpoint in race relations, especially in New York, but definitely the ripples were felt throughout the country. So now, the issue that caused this lawsuit to actually happen was that on the debate trail back in 2024 during the election, in a September 10th debate against then VP Kamala Harris, the president and again kept saying that, well, they, made a confession under duress, so therefore they were guilty. He comes out and says, oh, they admitted, they said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately, and they pled guilty, then they pled not guilty. So basically he was like, they admitted to it, therefore they're guilty. Meanwhile, number one, the jogger didn't die. So that's one lie that he knows full well is not true. He knew it as he was saying it. And number two, he knows they're not guilty because, again, the DNA exonerated them. That's why we refer to them as the Exonerated Five, not the Central Park Five, because they did not do it. And so he knew, as those words were exiting his mouth, that he was not telling the truth. So he, of course, tries to argue First Amendment, but the judge was like, absolutely not, because you were saying it as fact, not opinion. You're not like, it is my belief they're guilty. No, you said that they were guilty because of this confession, even though the evidence clearly says they're not. So clearly, since this could be objectively determined that it was false, he's got to face the music. So the men are asking for a jury trial. The amount of damages is not specified. But again, yet again, here we go again. He is going to be in court for some foolishness he said. The saga continues. I will keep you posted as this case moves forward. I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and this was The Breakdown. Take care.
I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popak Firm today at 1-877-POPAK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopakfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popak Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.